Picture this. You're standing in a suburban Denver driveway at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, staring at your husband, the man who promised you forever, as he steps out of a house that isn't a hotel, holding the hand of a 7-year-old boy who has his exact same smile, while a pregnant woman appears in the doorway calling him honey. That's where Bridget's world exploded. She'd flown to Denver to surprise Andreas, booked a romantic dinner at Guard and Grace, even wore the red dress he loved. But when the Uber dropped her at the hotel address she'd found in his email, she realized it was a residential street in the Cherry Creek neighborhood. House number 2847. A beautiful craftsman home with bikes in the yard, a minivan in the driveway, and a mailbox that read, "The Hargrave Family." Her hands shook as she knocked. A woman answered, blonde, glowing, maybe 6 months pregnant, and the confusion on her face mirrored Bridget's own. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Before Bridget could answer, Andreas walked into the frame, and the color drained from his face like she was a ghost. "Bridget," he whispered. The blonde woman's head snapped toward him. "Who's Bridget?" And that's when the 7-year-old boy ran up. "Daddy, is dinner ready?" Bridget's knees nearly gave out. Daddy. The woman, her name was Simone Pritchard, had been Andreas's first wife, married to him for 9 years, living in Denver while he built what she thought was their family. Andreas had orchestrated an impossible double life. Mondays through Wednesdays in Denver with Simone and their son, Thursdays through Sundays in Austin with Bridget. 2 homes, 2 wives, 2 completely separate realities. And neither woman had any idea the other existed. Here's where it gets wild, and this is where I need you to drop a comment below, because I want to know what you would do in this situation. Bridget didn't scream. She didn't cry. She looked at Simone, then at Andreas, and said 5 words that changed everything. "We need to talk. All of us." What happened next was a 4-hour confrontation that ripped apart every lie Andreas had built. Simone discovered that business trips to Austin were actually him living with his second wife. Bridget discovered that half their fortune, money she thought they'd built together, had been secretly funneled into this Denver house, Simone's lifestyle, and college funds for a child she never knew existed. Andreas tried to explain, tried to justify it with twisted logic about loving both of them differently and not wanting to hurt anyone, but his words fell flat. The 2 women, both devastated and betrayed, made a pact that night. They hired the same attorney, a cutthroat divorce lawyer named Miranda Cho, who took the case pro bono just for the headlines, and together they systematically dismantled Andreas's empire. They exposed his financial fraud, his falsified tax documents, his shell companies designed to hide assets. The legal battle lasted 9 months, but when the dust settled, Andreas lost everything: his company, his reputation, and his freedom when federal prosecutors charged him with wire fraud and bigamy. Simone got the Denver house and full custody. Bridget got the Austin estate and a $40 million settlement. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Bridget received a letter from a third woman, a woman in Phoenix named Octavia Brennan. She'd seen the news coverage, and she had a daughter who looked exactly like Andreas. Hit subscribe, because this story, it's not over. Drop a comment telling me, would you team up with the other woman or walk away? I'll read every single one. Bridget Castellano stood in Denver International Airport holding a surprise birthday cake, watching her husband kiss another woman through the arrival's gate glass. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of waiting, and in 8 seconds, her world collapsed. The woman was pregnant, very pregnant, and wearing the same anniversary necklace Andreas had given Bridget 3 months ago. Trust is a funny thing. You build it brick by brick over years, late-night conversations, shared dreams, promises whispered in the dark. Then someone takes a sledgehammer to the whole structure, and you're left standing in the rubble wondering how you didn't hear the cracks forming. Have you ever discovered the person you trusted most was living a completely different life? Not just hiding something small, but maintaining an entire separate existence you knew nothing about? That moment when reality shifts so fast you feel like you're falling even though your feet haven't moved? That's where Bridget stood, frozen, cake getting heavy in her hands, travelers rushing past her like water around a stone. She'd planned this for weeks. Andreas turned 40 today, and she wanted to surprise him. He'd been in Denver for 2 weeks, overseeing the office expansion. The same reason he'd been traveling constantly for the past 6 years. Seattle, Phoenix, Portland, always building, always growing the company, always lying. The pregnant woman laughed at something Andreas said. Her hand rested on her belly, and he covered it with his own. Gentle, protective. The way he used to touch Bridget before business consumed him. Before she became the wife who understood, who didn't complain, who kept the home fires burning while he built his empire. Bridget watched them walk toward baggage claim. Andreas carried a small suitcase, the same one he took on every trip. The woman leaned into him, and he kissed the top of her head. Casual, comfortable, familiar. This wasn't new. Stay with me, because what she does next will surprise you. Hit that like button if you've ever felt betrayed, if you've ever had your world turned inside out by someone who swore they loved you. Bridget set the cake down on an empty seat. Her hands were shaking now. She pulled out her phone, opened a rideshare app. She could confront them right here, scream, throw the cake, make a scene that would end up on social media by nightfall. But something cold settled in her chest, something calculating. She followed them instead. The woman, pretty, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, climbed into Andreas's rental car. Bridget hung back, then slipped into a taxi. "Follow that silver Audi," she said, feeling ridiculous, like she was in a bad movie. Except this was her life, and the plot twist was real. They drove to a neighborhood 20 minutes from the airport. Not the luxury high-rise Andreas had mentioned in his texts, no corporate housing, just tree-lined streets with modest homes, bikes on lawns, basketball hoops over garage doors. Normal, real, everything their Lake Travis estate wasn't. Andreas parked in a driveway, helped the woman out of the car like she was made of glass. They walked to the front door together, and before they went inside, he kissed her. Long, deep. The kind of kiss that tells a story Bridget didn't want to read. The taxi driver cleared his throat. "You okay, miss?" Rain started falling. Soft at first, then harder. Bridget paid the driver and got out. She stood across the street, rain soaking through her designer dress, the one she'd worn because Andreas always said blue was his favorite color on her. How many lies fit in 8 years? How many times had he kissed that woman, then come home and kissed her with the same mouth? How many nights had she slept next to a stranger wearing her husband's face? Through the window, she saw them. The woman kicked off her shoes. Andreas wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands cradling her pregnant belly. They swayed together in the kitchen, and even from across the street, Bridget could see he was smiling. She'd forgotten what his real smile looked like. Her phone buzzed. A text from Andreas. "Made it to Denver safe. Long day ahead. Love you." 3 words that meant nothing. 3 words he'd probably texted to the other woman, too. Bridget pulled her soaked hair back from her face. Rain ran down her cheeks, mixing with tears she didn't remember shedding. She could walk up to that door right now, ring the bell. Watch his face when he opened it and saw her standing there, drenched and destroyed. But she didn't move. Because somewhere between the airport and this street, between seeing her husband kiss another woman and watching him touch a belly that should have been impossible, Andreas had a vasectomy 3 years into their marriage, said he didn't want kids yet. Something shifted inside Bridget. Rage, yes. Humiliation, absolutely. But underneath all that was something sharper, something that cut through the shock and left behind clarity. She didn't just want answers. She wanted the whole truth. Every lie, every woman, every moment he'd stolen from her while she played the role of devoted wife. As Bridget sat in that rental car, rain streaming down the windshield, she made a choice. She wouldn't confront him. Not yet. She would do something far more dangerous. She would find out exactly who her husband really was. She'd spent 8 years being the perfect wife. Now she'd spend the next 8 days being the perfect detective. The hotel room smelled like cheap air freshener and other people's secrets. Bridget checked in under her maiden name, Castellano, the identity she'd given up when she became Mrs. Hargrave. The clerk didn't look twice at her credit card. Nobody cared about the woman in room 312 with red eyes and wet clothes. Good. Invisible was exactly what she needed to be. She spread everything out on the bed. Laptop. Andreas's credit card statements. She'd been monitoring their accounts for years, managing their finances while he focused on growth. His calendar, travel records, receipts. The evidence had been there all along. She'd just been too trusting to see it. Denver every 6 weeks like clockwork. Office expansion that had been expanding for 6 years. Hotel charges in her name that she'd never stayed at. He must have booked them, then canceled them after getting receipts for his business trips. Meanwhile, he was probably staying with that woman. The pregnant woman whose name Bridget still didn't know. She pulled up her laptop and searched for private investigators in Denver. 5 minutes of scrolling brought her to Roxanne Chen, former FBI, specialized in marital fraud, 5-star reviews from women who'd been exactly where Bridget was now. The phone rang twice before a voice answered. Chen Investigations. I need to know everything about my husband. Bridget's voice came out steady, surprising. And I need to know it fast. How fast? I have 8 days before he comes home. 8 days to figure out who I've been married to. A pause. Then, I've heard that tone before. You've already seen something, haven't you? He has another life. Another woman. She's pregnant. Kids. He told me he didn't want them. Got a vasectomy. But she's 6, maybe 7 months along. Another pause. Longer this time. Meet me at Murphy's Diner on Colfax. 30 minutes. Bring everything you've got. Roxanne Chen was 50, maybe 55, with silver hair cut short and eyes that missed nothing. She ordered coffee. Didn't touch it. Just studied Bridget across the cracked vinyl booth while rain hammered the diner windows. How long have you been married? 8 years. How long has he been traveling? The whole time. But it got worse about 6 years ago. That's when he said the company really started taking off. Roxanne nodded slowly. 6 years, that lines up. With what? With how long men like him can usually maintain a double life before something cracks. You showing up here? That's the crack. She pulled out a tablet, started taking notes. Tell me about the woman you saw. Bridget described her, the necklace, the belly, the way Andreas touched her like she was precious. That's not an affair, Roxanne said quietly. That's a relationship. The words hit different than expected. An affair was something temporary, stolen. A relationship was something built, something Andreas had constructed brick by brick while Bridget waited at home, loyal and blind. I need everything, Bridget said. Her name, where she works, how long they've been together. If there are others. Others? Roxanne looked up sharply. He travels to 4 different cities. Seattle, Phoenix, Portland, Denver. What if Denver isn't the only place he's built a life? Roxanne's expression shifted. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You're thinking clearly. That's good. Most people come to me emotional, ready to burn everything down. You want facts first. I want to know what I'm burning. They worked through the night. Coffee going cold. Refills neither of them drank. Roxanne made calls, ran searches, pulled records Bridget didn't ask how she accessed. By 3 in the morning, they had a name. Claire Morrison, elementary school teacher, 28 years old, no social media presence, rented a small house in the suburbs, clean credit, no criminal record, no ex-husbands or complicated past. Just a normal woman who thought she'd fallen in love with a divorced consultant named Andreas, who traveled for work and came home to her every few weeks. She doesn't know, Bridget said, staring at Claire's DMV photo. Pretty, younger than Bridget by almost a decade, but not glamorous, not the kind of woman Andreas usually noticed at the charity galas they attended, where he charmed donors and investors with equal ease. No, Roxanne agreed. She thinks he's single or divorced. That's the story he's selling. Bridget's phone buzzed. Andreas. Meeting's running late. Probably won't call tonight. Sleep well, beautiful. Would you want to know everything, or would some truths be too painful? Comment below what you would do. Would you dig deeper, knowing each answer might hurt worse than the last? Or would you stop here, divorce him, and walk away without knowing the full story? Bridget typed back, "No problem, love you." Lies were easy once you started telling them. Roxanne watched her. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the last time he touched me." 2 weeks ago, the night before this Denver trip. He'd initiated, which was rare lately. She'd thought maybe things were getting better. Maybe he was finally making time for them. Now she understood. He'd been saying goodbye to one woman before going home to another. Her skin crawled with the memory. His hands on her body, the same hands that hours later would be on Claire. His mouth on hers, the same mouth that had kissed a pregnant woman in an airport arrivals gate. Every intimate moment they'd shared in 8 years suddenly felt contaminated. She couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at her with real want, the kind of hunger she'd seen in his eyes when he looked at Claire through that kitchen window. Their physical relationship had become routine, expected, something to check off a list before business trips. She'd thought it was normal, marriage evolving, passion cooling into comfort, but it wasn't evolution. It was him rationing his energy for someone else. "How far do you want me to go?" Roxanne asked. "As far as it takes. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he sees, every lie he's told. I want the whole truth no matter what it costs." "It might cost everything." "I already lost everything. I just didn't know it until yesterday." Roxanne's tablet buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked up at Bridget with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What?" "My contact just sent me something. Surveillance footage from Andreas's downtown office building. From this morning." She turned the tablet around. Security camera footage showed Andreas leaving the building, getting into his car, but instead of heading toward the suburbs where Claire lived, he drove downtown, pulled into the garage of a high-rise condo building. The timestamp showed 6:47 a.m. He'd left Claire's house at dawn and gone somewhere else before work. Roxanne fast-forwarded. At 8:15 a.m., Andreas emerged from the building, different shirt, showered, satisfied smile on his face. "No," Bridget whispered. But Roxanne was already pulling up more footage. A different angle, the lobby, a woman answering the door of Unit 2847 in a shirt that was clearly men's-sized, young, blonde, not pregnant. On day 3 of surveillance, Bridget watched Andreas leave Claire's house at dawn, but instead of heading to his office, he drove to a third address, a high-rise downtown. And when a different woman answered the door in his shirt, Bridget realized the betrayal was even bigger than she'd imagined. 1 affair is a mistake, 2 affairs is a pattern, 3 means you're married to a stranger. Her name was Natasha Kowalski, 29 years old, pharmaceutical sales rep, drove a leased BMW, lived in a condo that cost more per month than most people's mortgages. Andreas paid for it. Direct transfer every 1st of the month from an account Bridget hadn't known existed. "How long?" Bridget asked, staring at bank records spread across the hotel room desk. Roxanne scrolled through her tablet. 2 years, maybe longer. The paper trail gets messy before that. 2 years. While Bridget planned anniversary dinners Andreas would cancel, while she defended his absences to friends who asked why he was never home, while she slept alone in a king-sized bed, telling herself his traveling was temporary, that once the company went public, they'd have time together. He'd had time, just not for her. The coffee shop across from Natasha's building had decent Wi-Fi and a corner table that faced the entrance. Bridget sat there for 3 hours, laptop open but not working, just watching, waiting. At 10:47 a.m., Natasha emerged. Yoga pants, designer jacket, phone pressed to her ear. She laughed at something, tossed her hair, walked to the parking garage with the kind of confidence Bridget had lost somewhere between the airport and this moment. At 2:15 p.m., Andreas showed up, let himself in with a key. Bridget's hands shook around her coffee cup. Cold now, 4th refill. The barista had stopped asking if she wanted anything else, just refilled it automatically every time she walked past. They'd given Andreas a key to their home, too, back when they first got married. Symbolic, trusting. She'd slipped it onto his key ring herself, kissed him, said something about home being wherever they were together. Stupid. She'd been so stupid. Andreas stayed 2 hours, left at 4:30 p.m., different clothes again, hair still damp. He checked his phone, smiled at something, then drove toward Claire's neighborhood. Rotation. He had a schedule, a system. Monday mornings with Natasha, afternoons and evenings with Claire. How many nights a week did he actually sleep in hotel rooms? Or was that another lie, more receipts doctored to maintain the performance? Bridget's phone buzzed. Michael Cross, the attorney Roxanne had recommended. She'd called him yesterday, set up a consultation for tomorrow morning. Found something interesting in public records. We should talk sooner. Can you come to my office now? The law office smelled like leather and old money. Michael Cross was 45, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and a handshake that felt solid, trustworthy, the kind of man who probably never lied to his wife, if he had one. No ring, Bridget noticed, sitting down. He followed her gaze to his bare left hand. Divorced. 3 years ago. She cheated. A pause. I understand what you're going through. Do you? My ex-wife had one affair. You're dealing with what appears to be 2 separate relationships your husband is maintaining, possibly more. That's not infidelity. That's something else. What would you call it? Criminal. He pulled out a folder. Andreas Hargrave married you 8 years ago in Austin, Texas, correct? Yes. He also married Claire Morrison 4 years ago in Denver. The room tilted. Married? I found the certificate this morning. He used a fake name for the marriage, Andreas Morrison, but the physical description and date of birth match, and there's a photo attached to the license application. He turned his laptop around. Wedding photo. Andreas in a suit. Claire in a simple white dress, flowers in her hair. Both of them smiling like people do when they believe in forever. At what point does heartbreak turn into something else? When does pain become power? Tell me in the comments. Because Bridget felt something shifting inside her chest. Something that used to be her heart hardening into something sharp. He's a bigamist, Michael said quietly, which means your marriage, legally speaking, may not be valid. What? If his marriage to Claire came first in terms of legal standing, if he was already legally married when he married you, then your marriage certificate isn't worth the paper it's printed on. The implications hit like falling. The company. It's in both our names. Exactly. If your marriage isn't legally valid, your claim to half the assets becomes very complicated. Meanwhile, Claire Morrison, as his legal wife, gets everything. Potentially. Bridget sat back. Natasha's apartment flashed through her mind. Claire's house, the necklace they both wore. How many women was he supporting with money that should have been theirs, hers and Claire's, while they both played house with a man who belonged to neither of them? "There's something else," Michael said. "Roxanne sent me surveillance footage from this morning. The third woman, Natasha Kowalski. I ran a background check." "And?" "She thinks he's divorced, too. Told her coworkers she's dating a consultant who travels for work. No mention of a wife, no mention of kids. He doesn't have kids, doesn't he?" Michael pulled up another photo. Claire at what looked like a doctor's office, belly visible, very pregnant. "That's from 3 days ago. She's about 6 months along. He had a vasectomy, 3 years into our marriage." Michael and Roxanne exchanged a look. "Mrs. Hargrave." "Bridget. Bridget. When men like your husband maintain multiple lives, they don't leave loose ends. If Claire is pregnant, one of 3 things is true. Either the vasectomy failed, which is possible but rare, or he reversed it without telling you, or the baby isn't his, which would mean Claire is involved with someone else, or he's lying about more than we know. Would you expose him publicly or handle it privately? What matters more, revenge or dignity? Comment below, because Bridget was starting to realize this wasn't about either one. This was about survival, about protecting herself from a man who'd built an empire of lies and trapped multiple women inside it. Michael's hand steadied hers as she signed the initial consultation papers. His fingers were warm. Different from Andreas's. His cologne was different too. Something cedar and clean. Not the expensive stuff Andreas wore. The stuff that probably smelled different to each woman who got close enough to notice. Their eyes met, held for a second too long. "I'll help you through this," Michael said. "Whatever it takes. Thank you. I mean it. What he's done, the legal ramifications alone, this is going to get complicated. But you're not alone." Bridget's phone buzzed as she left his office. "Andreas. Cutting Denver trip short. Home tomorrow. Miss you." She stared at the message. At the words, "miss you," that meant nothing, coming from a man who'd been with at least 2 other women in the past 72 hours. Then she stared at the folder Michael had given her. Evidence, documentation, the beginning of the end of her marriage to a man she'd never really known. She typed back, "Can't wait to see you, darling." The lie tasted bitter, but necessary. Tomorrow she'd show him exactly what missing someone really meant. Roxanne's text arrived as Bridget sat in her rental car. "Found something. Office, now." The attached photo showed a marriage certificate. Andreas and Claire, dated 4 years ago. He wasn't just cheating, he was a bigamist. She married a tech mogul. She was about to divorce a criminal. Michael's office felt different in daylight. Less imposing. More like the war room it was becoming. Papers covered every surface. Bank records, travel logs, property deeds, marriage certificates. Plural. Because apparently Andreas collected those too. "Your marriage isn't legally valid," Michael said, spreading documents across the mahogany table. Claire's marriage to Andreas happened first in terms of legal registration, 4 years ago. "Yours was 8 years ago, but what? He used a false identity for your marriage. Andreas Hargrave isn't his real name." The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. "What?" Michael pulled up a birth certificate. He was born Andreas Volkov, changed his name legally when he was 22. Before he met you. Before he built the company. Andreas Hargrave is essentially a corporate identity. A brand. So our entire marriage was built on a legal fiction, which makes it void in most jurisdictions. The name on your marriage certificate doesn't match his birth certificate, and since Claire married him under his legal name, Andreas Morrison, which is closer to his real identity than Hargrave, her marriage has stronger legal standing. Bridget sat down, hard. "The company is registered under the name Andreas Hargrave, which technically doesn't exist, which means the ownership structure is a mess. You're listed as co-owner, but if your marriage isn't valid, I have no claim. Not automatically. We can fight it. Argue common law marriage, financial contribution, intellectual property rights, but it's going to be ugly. And Claire? She has no idea she's married to a fraud, or that she's his legal wife, or that you exist. Roxanne walked in carrying 3 coffees and looking like she hadn't slept. She probably hadn't. We have a problem. Another one? Andreas has been funding 3 households, yours, Claire's, Natasha's. The money is coming from accounts that trace back to the company, but the transfers are buried in consulting fees and business expenses. If we expose him, the whole financial structure collapses, Michael finished. IRS will get involved, SEC if there's securities fraud, FBI if the bigamy charge sticks. Good, Bridget said. They both looked at her. Let it collapse. Let every agency investigate. I want him exposed for everything he's done. You'll lose everything too, Roxanne warned. The house, the money, your reputation. People will ask why you didn't know. They'll blame you for not seeing it. I don't care. Yes, you do. Michael's voice was gentle. Right now, you're angry, rightfully. But when this gets public, and it will, you need to protect yourself. We need strategy, not just revenge. What's the difference? Strategy means you come out of this with something. Revenge means you burn it all down and stand in the ashes with nothing. Bridget thought about the Lake Travis estate, the view she'd loved, the gardens she'd planned, the home she'd built while Andreas built other homes with other women. All of it contaminated now. All of it false. I want to talk to Claire. Bad idea, Roxanne said immediately. Why? Because she's a victim too. And victims are unpredictable. She might side with him, might not believe you, might expose our investigation before we're ready. She deserves to know. She does. But timing matters. We need to document everything first, build an airtight case. Then we confront him together, you, Claire, Natasha if she's willing, united front. That's how we win. Michael's hand covered hers where it rested on the table. The touch was brief, professional. But his fingers were warm, steady, different from Andreas's hands, which always moved with purpose, always calculating the next move. We'll get through this, Michael said. But we need to be smart. Your husband has been planning his life for years. We need to plan better. His cologne again. Cedar. Clean. She wondered if he always wore it or if it was new. Wondered why she was noticing. Why her skin felt warm where he'd touched her, even though he'd pulled away already. What do we do first? She asked. Document everything. Bank records, travel logs, property deeds. Build a timeline. Then we file for annulment based on fraud. Simultaneously, we alert Claire and give her the evidence she needs to protect herself. And Natasha? She's harder. No legal ties to Andreas, just an affair. But if we can prove he defrauded her financially, gifts, apartment payments, false promises, we might be able to bring her into the case too. Would you expose him publicly or handle it privately? What matters more, revenge or dignity? Because Bridget was learning they weren't opposites. Dignity meant refusing to be destroyed by his lies, and exposing him was the only way to reclaim the truth he'd stolen. Her phone buzzed. Andreas. Flight boards in an hour. Home by dinner. Can't wait to see you. She stared at the message, at Michael and Roxanne watching her, waiting for her response, at the evidence spread across the table, proof of every lie Andreas had told. She typed back, "Can't wait to see you, darling." Tomorrow she'd show him exactly what missing someone really meant. "When he gets home," Michael said quietly, "you need to act normal." "Can you do that?" "I've been acting normal for 8 years. What's one more day?" But her hands were shaking. Michael noticed, steadied them with his own just for a second. Eye contact that lasted too long. Professional distance barely masking something else. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "I'm really not." Yes, you are. Most people in your situation fall apart. You're building a case. That takes strength. Roxanne cleared her throat. I'll keep surveillance on him. Document where he goes, who he sees. By the time we confront him, we'll know more about his life than he does. What if there are more women? Bridget heard herself ask. What if Claire and Natasha aren't the only ones? Silence. Then we find them too, Michael said finally. And we help them. All of them. As Bridget left the attorney's office, her phone buzzed. Andreas, cutting Denver trip short, home tomorrow. Miss you. She stared at the message, then at the folder of evidence in her hands. She typed back, can't wait to see you, darling. Tomorrow she'd show him exactly what missing someone really meant. He walked through the door expecting his wife. He got a prosecutor instead. Bridget heard his car in the driveway at 6:47 p.m., exactly when he'd texted. Andreas was nothing if not punctual when it came to maintaining his performance. She stood in the living room, not by the door like usual, not ready with a kiss and questions about his trip, just standing there, waiting. Roxanne sat in the study, door cracked. Michael in the kitchen, out of sight but recording everything. The house was wired. Every word Andreas said would be documented. He walked in with flowers. Always flowers. Roses this time. Expensive ones from the boutique shop he liked, the one that charged $300 for arrangements he could buy at the grocery store for $30. Hey, beautiful. He set down his suitcase, crossed to her, tried to kiss her. Bridget stepped back. Andreas froze. What's wrong? How was Denver? Busy, productive, the usual. He held out the flowers. These are for you. I know I've been gone a lot lately. Were you alone in Denver? His smile didn't slip, didn't even crack. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Were you alone? I had meetings. You know that. The office expansion. There is no office expansion. I called your company headquarters. The Denver office has been fully operational for 5 years. There's no expansion, no renovation. No reason for you to be there every 6 weeks. Now the smile cracked, just slightly. Bridget, sit down, Andreas. I don't understand what's happening. Sit down. He sat, slowly, calculating. She could see his brain working, trying to figure out how much she knew, how to spin it, what lie would work best. Roxanne emerged from the study, Michael from the kitchen. Andreas's face went white. What is this? This is the part where you tell the truth, Bridget said, or we do it for you. She spread the photos across the coffee table. Andreas at the airport, Andreas with Claire, Andreas leaving Natasha's apartment, Andreas at Claire's doctor's appointment, marriage certificates, bank records, property deeds, 8 years of lies laid out in glossy prints. I can explain. No, Bridget said. You can't, because there's no explanation that makes this okay. No story that justifies what you've done. It's not what it looks like. Michael stepped forward. Andreas Volkov, also known as Andreas Hargrave, also known as Andreas Morrison. You are legally married to 2 women simultaneously, which makes you a bigamist. You've defrauded multiple financial institutions. You've maintained fraudulent identities for business purposes. Andreas stood up. Who the hell are you? Her attorney. Sit down. I don't have to listen to this. This is my house. Actually, Roxanne said calmly, it's not. The deed is in Bridget's name. You put it there for tax purposes, remember? Which means right now you're trespassing. Andreas looked at Bridget, really looked at her, and she saw the moment he realized his performance wasn't working. The moment he understood she wasn't the same woman who'd waved goodbye to him 8 days ago. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Does it matter? I need to explain. You need to tell the truth. All of it. Right now. Or I call Claire and tell her everything. Then Natasha. Then the police. Then the press. Your choice. He sat back down, hands shaking now, the mask crumbling. It started 6 years ago, an affair, just an affair. But then what? She got pregnant. I panicked, told her I'd leave you, but I needed time. She believed me. I kept stalling, then I married her, under a different name, kept both lives separate. And Natasha? 2 years ago, a mistake. But then it kept happening. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand anything. It was easy. Easy. Bridget's voice was ice. You destroyed 3 women's lives because it was easy? I didn't destroy anything. I took care of all of you. You're a liar. I loved you. I still... No. She cut him off. You don't get to say that word. You don't get to pretend this was about love. This was about you wanting everything and thinking you were smart enough to keep it. Her phone rang. Perfect timing. She answered. Hello? Is this Bridget Hargrave? A woman's voice, young, scared. Yes. This is Claire Morrison. Your number was on my husband's phone. He has you listed as a business contact, but I need to know. Are you sleeping with him? The room went silent. Andreas's face drained of color. No, Bridget said clearly. I'm married to him, and I didn't know you existed until 4 days ago. Silence on the phone. Then crying. Soft, broken sounds that made Bridget's chest ache. I'm pregnant, Claire whispered. I'm 6 months pregnant with his baby and, oh God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. He lied to both of us. Can you come here? I'll text you the address. We need to talk, in person. She hung up, looked at Andreas. Claire's on her way. You can't do this. Watch me. He stood, tried to grab the photos. Michael blocked him. Touch anything on that table, and I'll have you arrested right now. You think you're so smart, Andreas said to Bridget. His voice was different now, ugly, the performance completely gone. You think you've won, but I made you. Everything you have, everything you are, I gave you that. Without me, you're nothing. Have you ever watched someone you loved reveal themselves as a stranger? Drop a heart if you've survived that moment. Because Bridget looked at the man she'd married and didn't recognize anything about him. Not his face, not his voice, not the cruelty that had always been there, just hidden. You want to know what's funny, Andreas? She said quietly. I thought I wasn't enough for you. Turns out I was just too much, too trusting, too loyal, too blind to see I was married to a con artist who thought women were things to collect. I love you. You don't know what that word means. Physical revulsion hit her when he reached for her hand. Every memory of his touch suddenly contaminated. Every intimate moment they'd shared now feeling like assault. How many times had he come home from Claire's bed to hers? From Natasha's to Claire's? How many times had she tasted another woman on his mouth without knowing? Her stomach turned. She stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. The doorbell rang. Claire. Here to learn her perfect relationship was a lie. Here to discover the man she loved didn't exist. Bridget opened the door. Claire stood on the porch, one hand on her pregnant belly, tears streaming down her face. Young, pretty, broken. I'm so sorry, Bridget said. Come inside. Claire's eyes went to Andreas, to the photos on the table, to Michael and Roxanne standing witness. You're married to her? Really married? Yes, Bridget said, for 8 years. But he told me, he said he was divorced. He said, Claire's voice broke. Her hand tightened on her belly. The baby. Oh God, the baby. What do I do about the baby? We'll figure it out, Bridget heard herself say. Together. You're not alone. I don't understand. How could anyone? Because he's a liar, Bridget said simply. And we both trusted him. Andreas stood up, grabbed his keys. I don't have to listen to this. You two can sit here and play victims, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who built everything. The house, the money, the life you both enjoyed. You think that came from nowhere? You think that was free? You're right, Bridget said. It wasn't free. It cost us our dignity, our trust, years of our lives. But you know what? We're getting a refund. The company is in your name too, he said to Bridget. You expose me, you lose everything. She smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks. Darling, I already lost everything. Now I'm just taking back what's mine. As Andreas packed his bags, he turned with one final manipulation. The company is in your name too. You expose me, you lose everything. Bridget smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks. Darling, she said sweetly, I already lost everything. Now I'm just taking back what's mine. 3 women loved the same man, but only one of them was about to save the others. The coffee shop was neutral ground. 3 blocks from Bridget's house, far enough from Claire's neighborhood that nobody would recognize her. Bridget arrived early, chose a corner booth with privacy, ordered 3 coffees she wouldn't drink. Claire came in first, moving slow, one hand supporting her pregnant belly. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying. She'd thrown up twice on the drive over. She'd texted to warn Bridget she might be late. Morning sickness or grief, probably both. Thank you for meeting me, Bridget said. Claire sat down carefully. I don't know what else to do. I called my mom, but I couldn't say the words. How do you tell someone you're pregnant with a married man's baby when you didn't even know he was married? You don't. Not yet. First we figure out what we're dealing with. What do you mean? I mean, Andreas isn't just lying to us. There's a 3rd woman, Natasha Kowalski. She's coming. Claire's face went white. A 3rd? How many? Oh, God, how many are there? I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Natasha arrived 10 minutes later. Designer suit, heels that cost more than most people's rent. Walked in like she owned the place, then stopped cold when she saw Claire's belly. You're pregnant. Yes, with his baby. I thought so. Now I don't know what to think. Natasha sat down, ordered whiskey instead of coffee. I need you to tell me everything, both of you. Because I just spent 2 years with a man I thought was building a life with me, and now I find out he has a wife in Texas and a pregnant girlfriend in the suburbs. Could you sit across from your husband's other wife? Could you see her as human rather than enemy? Tell me in the comments, because that's what these 3 women did. Sat across from each other, victims of the same man, and chose to see each other instead of competing. Bridget went first. 8 years of marriage, the trips, the lies, the discovery in the airport, the investigation, finding Claire, then Natasha. Claire spoke next. 4 years with Andreas, the wedding she thought was real, the baby she thought was planned. The house he'd bought for them that Bridget now realized he was paying for with money from their joint accounts. Natasha's story was shorter, but sharper. 2 years. Exclusive relationship, or so she thought. He'd told her he was divorced, traumatized from a bad marriage, not ready to commit but getting there. She'd believed him because he seemed vulnerable, because he'd made her feel special. Did he tell you about the thing he does? Claire asked suddenly. With his... when you're... She stopped, face red. Bridget's stomach twisted. The humming? Oh, God! Claire put her face in her hands. He does it with you, too. Natasha looked between them. The humming thing isn't special? He probably does it with everyone, Bridget said. The words tasted like ash. Everything we thought was unique to us, the pet names, the gestures, the bedroom habits, it's all scripted. We're all playing the same role. Uncomfortable awareness that Andreas had touched all of them the same way, said the same words, made the same promises. Even their most private moments were lies, performances he'd perfected and repeated like an actor running lines. I feel sick, Claire whispered. Don't. Natasha's voice was hard. Don't you dare feel sick. Be angry, be furious, but don't be ashamed. He's the one who should be ashamed. She's right, Bridget said. We're not the problem. He is. They sat in silence. 3 women who should have been enemies, bound by betrayal. What do we do now? Claire asked. We work together, Bridget said. I have a lawyer, an investigator. We're building a case. Fraud, bigamy, financial crimes. But I need both of you to be willing to testify. To go on record. I'm in, Natasha said immediately. Whatever it takes. Claire's hand moved to her belly. What about the baby? If I testify against him, if this goes public, everyone will know. My students' parents, my colleagues, everyone will know I was stupid enough to— You weren't stupid, Bridget cut her off. You were lied to. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, and we're going to prove it. Roxanne arrived with new information. Spread photos across the table. Security footage. Bank records. More evidence of Andreas's systematic deception. There's a pattern, she explained. Every relationship follows the same timeline. First 6 months, intense courtship. Next year, deepening commitment, talk of future. After that, maintenance phase where he's busy with work, but still attentive enough to keep you invested. That's exactly what happened with us, Claire said quietly. With all of us, Natasha added. Which means he's done this before, Roxanne said. Multiple times. You 3 aren't the first. You're just the first ones we've found who are willing to compare notes. As the 3 women exchanged information, a pattern emerged. Andreas had a type, a timeline, a system. And according to Roxanne's latest findings, there was a 4th woman. One none of them knew about. One who might hold the key to everything. Before Bridget, before Claire, before Natasha, there was Vanessa, and she had been watching the whole time. The flight to San Diego was Bridget's idea. Roxanne had tracked down Vanessa Cruz through old marriage records, property deeds, an abandoned social media account from 2010. Vanessa hadn't just been erased from Andreas's life. She'd been erased completely, like she'd never existed. But she had existed. And according to Roxanne's research, she'd been his first wife, legally married in 2008, never legally divorced, which meant every marriage after hers was fraudulent, including Claire's, including Bridget's. Vanessa's apartment was small, 3rd-floor walk-up in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The hallway smelled like cooking and old carpet, nothing like the luxury Andreas surrounded himself with now. She answered the door before Bridget could knock, like she'd been waiting. You're the new one, Vanessa said, not a question. Come in. The apartment was clean but sparse, and one entire wall was covered in Andreas's timeline. Photos, newspaper clippings, printouts of social media posts, red string connecting dates and locations like a detective movie. How long have you been tracking him? Bridget asked. 15 years, since the day he left. Vanessa was in her 40s, maybe, pretty once, still beautiful in a tired way. Her eyes were what held Bridget, haunted but determined. I knew he'd do it again. Men like Andreas don't change. They just find new victims. Why didn't you report him? I tried. Nobody believed me. He was too charming, too successful, too good at covering his tracks. And I was just the crazy ex-wife who couldn't move on. She gestured to the wall. So I documented, waited, knew eventually he'd slip up. Claire and Natasha arrived together. Vanessa looked at Claire's belly and something softened in her face. He got you pregnant? Yes. Did he tell you he wanted kids? He said he'd always wanted to be a father, that his ex-wife— Claire stopped. You. He said you didn't want children. Vanessa laughed. Bitter sound. I had 2 miscarriages while we were married. He was relieved both times. Said kids would complicate things. How many red flags do we excuse in the name of love? Share your experience with missing the warning signs, because all 4 women stood in that apartment realizing they'd seen the red flags. They'd just convinced themselves the flags were decoration, not warnings. "Tell us everything," Bridget said. Vanessa did. They'd met when Andreas was nobody. 25 years old, working tech support, big dreams but no money. She'd believed in him, supported him through school, through his first startup attempts. They got married young, broke, happy. Then he met a partner, built a company, got successful, and everything changed. "He started traveling," Vanessa said. "Business trips, always business trips. I believed him because, why wouldn't I? We were building something together. Or so I thought. But he wasn't building with her. He was building away from her. New identity, new life. And when the company took off, he just left. Moved to Texas, changed his name, started over." "He abandoned you?" "Worse. He gaslit me into thinking the marriage was over, that we'd agreed to separate, that I was holding him back. Made me sign papers I thought were separation agreements. Turned out they were financial releases, giving up my claim to the company." "That's fraud," Natasha said. "Yes. But I was young and stupid and believed him when he said he'd take care of me. He didn't. He just disappeared." Vanessa's story of their marriage wasn't romantic. It was systematic abuse. Love bombing at first, flowers, compliments, promises, then isolation, convincing her to quit her job, move away from family, depend entirely on him. "And the physical stuff?" Bridget asked quietly. Vanessa's hand went to her wrist. "Old habit. He never hit me where it would show, and he made it seem like I wanted it, like I'd asked for it rough, liked it that way. By the end, I didn't know what was real anymore." The pattern was clear. Andreas didn't just lie. He constructed entire realities, then trapped women inside them until they couldn't remember what truth felt like. "He doesn't collect women because he loves too much," Vanessa said. "He collects us because he doesn't know how to love at all. We're acquisitions, trophies, and when we figure it out, he just finds a new shelf." They spent hours going through Vanessa's evidence. She'd been meticulous. Every trip, every lie, every woman she'd identified over the years. Some she'd tried to warn, most hadn't believed her. "Why should I believe you now?" Bridget asked. "Because you found the others. You're here, together, comparing notes. That's the difference. He always kept us separate before, isolated. Now you're united. That's his worst nightmare." Vanessa pulled out a locked box from under her bed, opened it with a key she wore around her neck. Inside, documentation that Andreas's entire fortune was built on stolen intellectual property from his first startup partner, a man named David Chen. Brilliant programmer, terrible businessman. Andreas had been the face, the salesman. David had been the brains. "What happened to David?" Roxanne asked. "Died 5 years ago, fell from his apartment balcony, ruled accidental. He'd been drinking, was on medication for anxiety, but David didn't drink, and he wasn't on medication. You think Andreas? I think David figured out Andreas was stealing from the company. I think he threatened to expose him. And I think Andreas solved that problem the way he solves all his problems, permanently." The room went cold. "You want to take him down?" Vanessa asked, looking at each woman in turn. "We don't just divorce him, we destroy him." 4 women, 1 enemy, and a plan that would either ruin him or bury them all. Bridget's house became command center. The same dining room where she'd hosted Andreas's business dinners now held evidence of his crimes. 4 women sat around that table, laptops open, documents spread everywhere. War room. That's what Michael called it when he arrived with more legal briefs. "This is ambitious," he said, looking at their timeline. "You're going after him for bigamy, fraud, embezzlement, and now possibly murder." "He deserves it," Natasha said. "Agreed. But ambitious means risky. The more charges we pursue, the more chance something fails. And if this goes public before we're ready, he'll run, Vanessa finished. He's done it before. New name, new city, new life. We need to move fast. They divided responsibilities based on access and expertise. Bridget, financial records, company ownership documents, anything tied to their marriage. Claire, personal documentation, their wedding certificate, medical records from the fertility clinic. Natasha, evidence of his separate life in Denver, witness statements from neighbors and co-workers. Vanessa, historical documentation, evidence of previous fraud, connection to David Chen's death. What about the FBI? Claire asked. Do we really need to involve them? Yes, Roxanne said firmly. This is bigger than divorce court. Wire fraud, tax evasion, possible homicide, federal crimes. The FBI has resources we don't. But they'll take over the investigation. We'll lose control. We never had control, Bridget said quietly. That's the point. Andreas had all the control. Now we're taking it back the only way we can, through the system. Claire's hand moved to her belly. Protective gesture she did constantly now. What about the baby? If this goes public, if he's arrested, everyone will know. My family, my students, everyone will know I was deceived, Bridget said. You were deceived, and this baby is innocent. Whatever happens to Andreas, that child deserves to grow up knowing the truth. The truth that their father is a criminal? The truth that their mother was strong enough to protect them. Is revenge ever justified? Or does it just make you become what you hate? Comment your thoughts below. Because these women weren't pursuing revenge. They were pursuing justice. There's a difference. The plan came together over 3 days. Roxanne coordinated with an FBI contact, White-Collar Crimes Division. They'd been watching Andreas for years, suspicious of his company's finances but never able to prove anything. Now, with 4 victims willing to testify and documentation spanning 15 years, they had enough. But they needed confession, recorded admission, something that couldn't be disputed in court. We lure him out, Michael said. Get him talking. People like Andreas can't help bragging when they think they've won. How do we make him think he's winning? Natasha asked. Bridget looked at the other women, at Vanessa's determined eyes, at Claire's protective hands on her belly, at Natasha's sharp intelligence. We make him think we're fighting each other instead of him. The plan was elegant, simple, dangerous. Bridget would call Andreas, tell him she wanted to make a deal, the company in exchange for quiet divorce, no charges, no publicity, just a clean break. He'd believe it because he expected her to break. Expected all of them to break eventually, but what he'd walk into was an ambush. All 4 women, all the evidence, recording devices, witnesses, the end of his performance. They worked late into the night. Michael stayed, helping draft legal documents. His hand brushed Bridget's more than necessary. Their eye contact lasted longer than professional. The other women noticed. Nobody said anything, but Vanessa smiled, small, knowing, like watching someone else get a second chance at trust. When the others left, Michael lingered. You're doing the right thing, he said. Am I? Or am I just hurting everyone? Claire, the baby, myself, for pride. This isn't pride. This is protection. If you don't stop him, he'll do it again. To someone else. Some other woman who'll believe his lies. His hand covered hers on the table, warm, steady. Different from Andreas's calculating touch. Thank you, Bridget said, for everything. I haven't done anything yet. You believed me, from the first day. You didn't question whether I was crazy or vindictive or exaggerating. You just believed me. Because I've seen this before. Different details, same story. Powerful men who think rules don't apply to them. Women who finally say enough. He paused. You're braver than you know. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. The moment hung between them. His thumb traced small circles on her wrist. Her pulse jumped. Then his phone rang. FBI contact. Ready to move forward. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Bridget repeated. We do this tomorrow. The plan was perfect. The evidence was solid. The FBI was ready to move. Then Andreas called Bridget with an offer that changed everything. I'll give you the company, all of it. Just make the others go away. She looked at the women around her table, women who'd become something more than allies, women who trusted her to make the right choice. We need to talk, she said into the phone. In person. He thought he was negotiating. He was walking into an ambush. The restaurant was neutral ground, high-end enough that Andreas would feel comfortable. Private room that could be secured, cameras hidden in decorative fixtures, microphones in the flower arrangements, FBI agents at nearby tables disguised as regular diners. Andreas arrived 15 minutes late. Power move, making everyone wait. He walked in like he owned the place. Designer suit, expensive watch, that smile he used to close deals. The smile died when he saw 4 women instead of 1. What is this? Sit down. Andreas, Bridget said, I came to talk to you, not... He gestured at the others. Them. They have names. Vanessa, Claire, Natasha, women you married or lied to or both. We're all here because we all have something you want. And you have something we want. Which is? The truth. He sat. Slowly. Eyes moving between them. Calculating odds. Looking for the weakest link. You always said you loved strong women, Andreas, Bridget continued. Surprise, you created 4 of them, and now we're going to show you exactly what that means. Have you ever seen a manipulator lose control? That moment when they realize the game is over? Tell me about it. Because Andreas's face moved through emotions like shuffling cards, confidence to confusion to fear. I don't know what you think is happening here. We know everything, Vanessa said. I've been documenting you for 15 years. Every lie, every woman, every crime. Claire's pregnant with a baby that's biologically not yours, Bridget added. Because you're sterile. Because you paid a fertility doctor to use donor sperm without her consent. Natasha has financial records proving you embezzled from your own company to fund multiple households, Roxanne said, stepping into the room. And we have evidence connecting you to David Chen's death, Michael added, joining them. The partner you claimed fell from his balcony, the one who died right after discovering you'd stolen his work. Andreas stood up. This is insane. You can't... Sit down. Michael's voice was steel. Or I call the agents outside and you get arrested right now instead of having a chance to explain. He sat. Talk, Bridget said. Tell us why. Make us understand how you could do this to so many people. You want to know why? His voice changed. Dropped the charm. Because I could. Because all of you were so desperate to be chosen, so grateful for attention, you didn't ask questions. You made it easy. Easy, Claire whispered. Yes, easy. You think you're victims? You're volunteers. Every one of you saw what you wanted to see. Believed what you wanted to believe. Under the table, Michael's hand found Bridget's. Brief touch, support, promise that she wasn't alone. Andreas saw it, laughed. Already moving on? That was fast. Guess you weren't as devastated as you pretended. Don't, Michael warned. But Andreas leaned forward, eyes on Bridget. Remember that weekend in Cabo? Our anniversary? What we did in the hotel room with the mirror? Her stomach turned. Memory assault. Him weaponizing their intimacy. Remember how you begged for it? How you said, stop. Her voice was ice. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make our private moments into weapons. That's what abusers do when they're losing. I'm not. You are. You're an abuser, a liar, a fraud. And you're about to answer for all of it. FBI agents entered on cue. Special Agent Morrison, no relation to Claire, unfortunate coincidence, showed his badge. Andreas Volkov, also known as Andreas Hargrave, also known as Andreas Morrison, you're under arrest for wire fraud, bigamy, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Andreas lunged across the table. Not at the agent, at Bridget. Like hurting her might somehow undo everything. Michael blocked him. Agents pulled Andreas back. Handcuffs clicked. "You'll regret this," Andreas hissed at Bridget. "All of you. When the lawyers are done, when the press destroys your reputations, when your families find out what you really are." "What we really are?" Bridget leaned close enough to whisper. "We're survivors, and you're just another criminal who thought he was smarter than the women he tried to destroy." As FBI agents entered to arrest Andreas for wire fraud and bigamy, he locked eyes with Bridget. "You'll regret this," he hissed. She leaned close enough to whisper. "The only thing I regret is the 8 years I wasted believing you were worth my loyalty." As they led him away, Vanessa handed Bridget a final folder. "There's one more thing you need to know," she said quietly, "about the baby Claire's carrying. Some secrets are buried so deep you need DNA evidence to find them." The folder was thin: medical records, lab results, documentation from the fertility clinic where Claire had undergone IVF. Bridget spread them across Michael's conference table. Claire sat across from her, face pale. Natasha and Vanessa flanked her like bodyguards. "What am I looking at?" Claire asked. "The truth about your baby," Vanessa said quietly. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I needed to confirm it first." Roxanne pulled up files on her laptop. "Andreas is sterile. Result of childhood illness. Mumps complications when he was 12. He can't father children. Never could." Claire's hand moved to her belly. "But he said, we talked about having kids. He was so excited when I got pregnant." "He lied," Bridget said, "about all of it." "The IVF clinic has records," Vanessa continued. "Andreas arranged everything. Paid in cash. Specified donor criteria, height, build, coloring similar to his own. The doctor thought it was standard procedure for a sterile patient wanting to maintain the illusion of biological fatherhood." "But I didn't consent to donor sperm," Claire whispered. "I thought, he told me they were using his—" "He lied about that too," Roxanne said, "which makes this reproductive fraud. In some states, that's a criminal charge. In all states, it's grounds for a lawsuit against the clinic and against Andreas. Where is the line between deception and assault? When does lying about who you are become a violation of the body? Share your thoughts." Because Claire sat there, pregnant with a child conceived through deception, and nobody could tell her whether to grieve or be grateful. "The baby isn't his," she said. Not a question. Statement of fact she was trying to process. "No. Biologically, the baby is the donor's. Legally, the baby is yours. Andreas has no claim. But everyone will think, my family, his family, everyone will assume I cheated, that I got pregnant by someone else." "Let them think it," Natasha said firmly. "Better they think you cheated than know he violated you this way." "Did he?" Claire looked up, eyes red. "Violate me? Or did I just not ask enough questions?" "He violated you," Bridget said. "You consented to IVF with your husband's sperm. That's not what happened. He lied about the most fundamental aspect of creating life. That's violation." The clinic records revealed more. Andreas had used the same donor for another pregnancy. 3 years ago. Different woman. Baby born healthy. Mother and child disappeared from his life shortly after. "Jessica Reeves," Roxanne said, pulling up an old driver's license photo. "Lived in Seattle, dated Andreas for 2 years, got pregnant, gave birth to a boy, then vanished." "He let her go?" Bridget asked. "Or she ran. Hard to track her down. She's off the grid. No social media. No credit cards in her name. Cash-only lifestyle. Either she's hiding or she's dead, Vanessa finished. The room went cold. We need to find her, Michael said. If she's alive, she's a witness. If she's not, then Andreas's body count is higher than we thought. Claire stood abruptly, walked to the window, hand on belly, protecting a child created through lies. What do I tell this baby? She asked, voice breaking. When they're old enough to ask about their father? What do I say? You tell them the truth, Bridget said, that they were wanted, that you fought for them, that their father was a liar, but their mother was strong enough to survive him and build something better. I don't feel strong. You're 8 months pregnant, testifying against a criminal, and you haven't broken. That's strength. The fertility doctor's records revealed something else, a pattern. Andreas had approached multiple clinics over the years. Some refused his requests, others complied. All had documentation of cash payments, fake names, insistence on secrecy. He's been doing this for years, Roxanne said, planning to have children through donors, passing them off as his own, control without biological consequence. Why? Natasha asked. Why go through all that instead of just adopting or being honest? Because honesty requires vulnerability, Michael said. And men like Andreas don't do vulnerability. They do control. This way, he gets the appearance of fatherhood without the genetic tie. If something goes wrong, if the child has health issues or doesn't meet his standards, he can walk away without responsibility. That's evil, Claire whispered. Yes, Bridget agreed. It is. The breakthrough came from unlikely source. Roxanne's FBI contact had been tracking financial records, found wire transfers to a P.O. box in Montana, small amounts monthly, like child support, but paid in cash to avoid paper trail. Jessica Reeves is in Montana, Roxanne said, and she's been receiving money from Andreas for 3 years, which means she knows. She knows what he is. We need to talk to her, Bridget said. Road trip? Natasha asked. Road trip. The fertility doctor's records revealed something else. Andreas had arranged the same procedure with another woman 3 years earlier, a woman who'd given birth to his child and disappeared. Finding her meant finding a child caught in Andreas's web of lies and possibly another victim who needed saving. Every predator leaves a trail. The question is whether you're brave enough to follow it into darkness. Montana in November was beautiful in a harsh way. Snow on mountains, pine trees thick enough to hide anything, small towns where people minded their business and strangers got noticed. Jessica Reeves had chosen her hiding place well. Bridget and Michael drove 12 hours from Denver. They'd left at dawn, Claire and Natasha staying behind to manage the FBI coordination. Vanessa had provided the address, a cabin outside Whitefish, rented under a fake name but paid for with money transfers that traced back to Andreas. You nervous? Michael asked, hand covering hers on the console. Terrified. What if she doesn't want to be found? What if she runs? Then we tell her we're not here to hurt her. We're here to help. The cabin was small, set back from the road, smoke rising from the chimney, a car in the driveway with Montana plates. Signs of life, but careful life. The kind of life you live when you're always looking over your shoulder. Bridget knocked, waited, knocked again. The door opened slowly. A woman stood there, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a baseball bat in her hand. Jessica Reeves? Who's asking? My name is Bridget Castellano. This is Michael Cross. We're here about Andreas Hargrave. Jessica's face went white. The bat dropped. How did you find me? Money transfers. He's been paying you, hasn't he, for 3 years? We're not here to judge you, Michael said quickly. We're here because Andreas is under arrest, fraud, bigamy, possibly murder, and we think you might be in danger. Jessica looked past them at the driveway, at the empty road, then stepped back. Come in, but be quiet. My son is sleeping." The cabin was clean but sparse. Toys in the corner. Photos on the wall. Jessica with a little boy, maybe 3 years old. Dark hair, brown eyes, nothing like Andreas. "That's Tyler," Jessica said, following Bridget's gaze. "He doesn't know about his father. I plan to keep it that way." How do you rebuild trust after betrayal this deep? Can you ever feel safe again? Because Jessica had been living with that question for 3 years, and the answer was written all over her face. You don't rebuild, you just survive. They sat at the small kitchen table. Jessica made coffee nobody drank. "Tell us what happened," Bridget said gently. Jessica's story matched the pattern. Met Andreas in Seattle 4 years ago. He was charming, successful, said he was divorced. They dated for a year. When she got pregnant, he was excited, supportive, paid for everything. But then things changed. He got controlling, wanted to know where I was every minute, who I talked to, what I spent money on. When I pushed back, he got angry. "Did he hurt you?" "Not at first. Just verbal. Telling me I was ungrateful. That nobody else would want me pregnant with another man's baby, except it wasn't another man's baby, it was his. Or so I thought." She'd found out the truth after Tyler was born. Medical records from the IVF clinic. Andreas had arranged everything, used donor sperm, never told her. I confronted him. He laughed, said it didn't matter because the baby was mine anyway, and he'd been generous enough to help me become a mother, like I should be grateful for the deception. That's when she realized he was dangerous. Started planning her escape, saved money, made copies of documents. Then one night, after he'd been drinking, Andreas told her something that made her pack up and run. He said he'd done this before. With women. With business partners. Said he knew how to make problems disappear permanently. Then he looked at Tyler and said, "But you wouldn't be a problem, would you? You'd do what I say." Jessica's voice broke. "I left that night. Took Tyler and ran. Been here ever since. He sends money every month. Hush money, I guess. Keeping me quiet. I deposit it because I need it to survive, but I never spend more than I have to. The rest goes into an account Tyler will get when he's 18. "You did the right thing," Bridget said. "Did I? Or did I just abandon other women to deal with him? You survived. You protected your child. That's not abandonment. That's courage." Michael pulled out photos. Andreas's arrest. The other women. Evidence of his crimes spanning years. "We need you to testify," he said, "about the fertility fraud, about his threats, about what he told you that night. If I testify, he'll know where I am. He's in jail." "He can't hurt you." "You don't understand. Men like Andreas always have a way, always have someone who'll do their dirty work." But she agreed, because staying silent meant Tyler would grow up with a monster's shadow over him. Testifying meant that shadow could finally be erased. As they prepared to leave, Jessica grabbed Bridget's arm. Her grip was tight, desperate. "There's something else. Andreas told me once, when he was drunk, that he'd done this before. Not just with women, with business partners. He said he'd eliminated a problem once, permanently." Bridget's blood went cold. "What problem?" "A man named David. David Chen. Andreas said he got too curious, started asking too many questions about the company finances. Andreas said he handled it. Made it look like an accident." The dead partner Vanessa mentioned suddenly felt less like accident, more like murder. What started as divorce became fraud investigation. Now it was turning into homicide. The FBI evidence room was cold, sterile, white walls and harsh lights that made everything look clinical. Exposed. Special Agent Morrison spread crime scene photos across the table. David Chen, 32 years old when he died, brilliant programmer, co-founder of the company that became Andreas's empire, found dead at the base of his apartment building 5 years ago, ruled accidental. He'd been drinking, on anxiety medication. Witnesses said he'd seemed depressed about business stress, but the photos told a different story if you knew what to look for. Defensive wounds on his hands, Agent Morrison said, pointing. Bruising on his arms consistent with being grabbed. Toxicology showed alcohol and medication, but the levels were wrong. Too perfect, like someone made sure he'd have just enough to explain away the fall. You think he was murdered, Michael said. I think someone helped him over that balcony, and I think that someone had motive to shut him up. Andreas, because David had discovered the financial fraud, the stolen intellectual property, the systematic deception that had built an empire on lies. Bridget stared at the photos. Young man, smart, trusting, dead because he'd believed in the wrong partner. I slept next to him, she whispered. For 8 years. I slept next to someone who could do this. When trauma meets new love, how do you know it's real and not just survival? Have you ever fallen for someone while your world was burning? Because Bridget looked at Michael and wondered if what she felt was genuine or just desperation for something safe. He must have sensed her doubt. His hand found hers under the table. Steady. Real. We're going to prove it, Agent Morrison said. We're reopening the investigation. With Jessica's testimony about Andreas's confession, with the financial motive, with new forensic analysis, we can build a murder case. How long will that take? Months, maybe longer. Murder investigations are complex, and this one's 5 years old. Evidence degrades. Witnesses forget. But if we can prove Andreas killed his partner to take control of the company, then he never gets out of prison, Bridget finished. They worked until midnight, building timeline, connecting evidence. Every hour brought new revelations, new horrors about the man Bridget had married. When they finally left the FBI office, Michael walked her to her car. Downtown Denver at night, city lights reflecting off buildings, cold wind cutting through her jacket. Come to my apartment, Michael said. You shouldn't be alone tonight. Michael. I just mean you shouldn't be alone, not after everything you've seen today. But she wanted him, needed to feel something real after drowning in Andreas's lies. His apartment was close, 10 minutes. Top floor of a renovated building with exposed brick and huge windows, simple, clean, honest, everything Andreas's life had never been. They made it through the door before the kiss happened, urgent, desperate, his hands in her hair, her back against the wall. Are you sure? He whispered against her mouth. Because I'm sure. His mouth was certainty after months of lies. His hands steady where Andreas's had been performance. Every touch asked permission. Every kiss waited for her answer. I've got you, Michael whispered against her lips, and for the first time in forever, she believed it. They moved to the bedroom. Slow this time. Deliberate. He undressed her like she was precious, not fragile. Like her scars, emotional and otherwise, made her stronger, not broken. You're beautiful, he said. Don't. It's true. You're the strongest person I've ever met. His body covered hers, different from Andreas, heavier, softer in some places, harder in others, real, human, flawed, and honest. When he moved inside her, she felt present, aware, not performing, not pretending, just being. Two people choosing each other, equal and conscious and free, after they lay tangled in sheets that smelled clean, no ghosts, no lies, just them. Was that real? She asked. Or am I just broken and desperate? It was real. We're real. And you're not broken, you're healing. Her phone rang. Middle of the night. Roxanne. We got it. Andreas's cellmate made a deal. He's willing to testify that Andreas confessed to killing David Chen, gave details only the killer would know. Bridget sat up. When? Tomorrow. The prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow. This is it, Bridget. We have him. The breakthrough came from unlikely source, Andreas's current cellmate. Desperate for plea deal, he revealed Andreas had confessed everything, including where to find evidence that would prove his former partner's death was murder. The location? Hidden in the Lake Travis estate. In Bridget's home, she'd lived in that house for 8 years, slept in those rooms, walked those halls, never knowing she was living in a crime scene. The FBI search warrant arrived at dawn. 20 agents, evidence technicians, dogs trained to detect blood and accelerants. They swarmed the Lake Travis estate like ants, consuming something dead. Bridget stood in the driveway watching strangers dismantle her life. Michael beside her. The other women gathered too. Vanessa, Claire, Natasha, Jessica with Tyler on her hip. Witnesses to the final act. "Where do we start?" Agent Morrison asked. "His office," Bridget said. "He never let me in there, said it was his private space." The office was locked, always had been. Andreas claimed he needed privacy for business calls, for dealing with investors, for handling sensitive company information. They broke the door down. Inside, exactly what you'd expect from a tech mogul. Expensive desk, leather chair, computers, filing cabinets, view of the lake through floor-to-ceiling windows. But behind the built-in bookshelf, hidden behind a false panel, they found a safe. "Can you open it?" Morrison asked Bridget. "I don't know the combination." They brought in a specialist. 30 minutes later, the safe clicked open. Inside, documentation spanning a decade, David Chen's original business plan, contracts showing he owned 50% of the company, evidence that Andreas had systematically stolen his partner's work, then eliminated him when David discovered the theft. There were photos. David confronting Andreas. Andreas's face cold, calculating. The last photo was dated 3 days before David's death, and there was a journal. Andreas's handwriting, clinical notes about solving the David problem, plans for making it look accidental, medication dosages, timing, witnesses to manipulate. "He documented his own murder," Vanessa whispered. "He kept proof of what he did." "Narcissists always do," Morrison said. "They think they're too smart to get caught. They keep trophies." How do you reclaim spaces haunted by betrayal? Can a place be healed by new memories? Because Bridget walked through rooms where she'd lived, loved, tried to build a marriage, and realized every corner was contaminated. Every wall had witnessed lies. Every floor had absorbed deception like water into wood. "I can't live here anymore," she said to Michael. "Then don't. Sell it. Buy something new. Start over." "Is that allowed while the case is ongoing?" "The house is in your name. Legally, it's yours. Andreas has no claim." That night, after the FBI finished cataloging evidence, after everyone left, Bridget and Michael walked through the empty house one final time. "This bedroom," she said, standing in the doorway. "This is where he lied to me, where he touched me after being with them, where I believed every promise he made." Michael pulled her close. "Then let's change what this room means." On fresh sheets in the room where lies had lived, Michael loved her like exorcism, every touch erasing Andreas's memory, every whispered word writing new story on her skin. This time, she didn't think about Andreas, didn't compare, didn't analyze. She just felt pleasure, safety, connection. Real connection with someone who saw all her broken pieces and chose her anyway. "I love you," she said afterward, surprised by the words. By how true they felt. "I love you too. Have since that first consultation, since you walked into my office refusing to be a victim." "I was a victim." "No, you were surviving. There's a difference." Morning came with phone calls, the prosecutor, Andreas's attorney trying to make deals, media wanting comments, the world closing in. But Bridget stood at the window overlooking the lake, her view, her life, and felt something she hadn't felt in years, Freedom. Her phone rang. Blocked number. Against Michael's advice, she answered. Andreas's voice, from jail, ice cold. You think you've won? But I made you Mrs. Hargrave. Without me, you're nobody. She smiled at her reflection in the window. Strong, certain, alive. You're right, she said. Mrs. Hargrave is dead, and Bridget Castellano is just getting started. The courtroom was packed with people who wanted to watch a monster answer for his crimes. But only 5 women knew the full truth of what he'd destroyed. Andreas sat at the defense table in prison orange, thinner, older, diminished. Without his expensive suits and practiced charm, he looked ordinary, weak, human. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Each day brought new testimony, new evidence, new revelations about the extent of his deception. Vanessa testified first. 15 years of documentation. Her voice steady despite visible trembling. She told the court about systematic abuse, financial fraud, abandonment, about being erased from his life like she'd never existed. Natasha went next. Business records, financial statements, evidence of embezzlement. Her testimony was sharp, clinical. She'd turned her pain into precision, her rage into data. Jessica's testimony broke hearts. She held Tyler, now 4 years old, on her lap while she described Andreas's threats. His confession about eliminating problems permanently. The fertility fraud. Her 3 years in hiding. Claire testified 8 months pregnant, waddling to the witness stand. Voice soft but firm. She told the court about reproductive deception, about believing she was creating life with her husband, only to discover every aspect of conception had been lie. What does justice look like to you? Is it punishment, or is it freedom? Tell me in the comments what you would need to heal, because the courtroom held both. Andreas's punishment, the women's freedom. Bridget testified last. She walked to the witness stand in a blue dress, the same color Andreas once said was his favorite. But this time, she wore it for herself, for the truth. Your Honor, I stood by that man for 8 years. I believed his lies, funded his empire, defended his absences. But today I stand here as proof that belief without truth is just another word for blindness, and I can see clearly now. She detailed everything: the discovery at the airport, the investigation, the evidence, the confrontation. The moment she realized the man she'd married didn't exist, had never existed. Andreas's attorney tried to break her, suggested she was vindictive, jealous, making up stories because she couldn't accept her marriage failing. My marriage didn't fail, Bridget said calmly. It was never real. You can't fail at something that was built on fraud from day one. The defense crumbled under weight of evidence. 5 women. 15 years of documentation, David Chen's murder, financial crimes, reproductive fraud, bigamy. The jury deliberated 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Andreas showed no emotion when the verdict was read, but his eyes found Bridget's across the courtroom. Hate there, pure hate, like she'd committed the crime by exposing his. Sentencing came a week later, 25 years to life, no possibility of parole. As they led him away, Andreas tried one final manipulation, looked at Claire's belly. That baby will know what you did, will know you destroyed their father. Claire stood, 8 months pregnant, exhausted, but strong. That baby will know I protected them, from you. The courtroom erupted. The judge called order, but Bridget saw it. Andreas's final mask cracking, the moment he realized he'd lost completely. After they celebrated at Michael's apartment, all 5 women, Tyler playing with toys in the corner, champagne and relief and tears. Michael pulled Bridget into the bedroom. Private moment while others toasted in the living room. How do you feel? He asked. Free, terrified, relieved, everything. Victory tasted like champagne and Michael's kiss, like freedom earned through fire. Like learning her body could feel joy again after months of it only feeling like weapon Andreas had used against her. They made love slowly, celebration and gratitude and promise. His apartment. No shadows of past. Pure future. "Marry me," he said afterward. "What?" "Not now. Not soon. But someday. When you're ready. When you know this is real. Marry me." "Michael." "You don't have to answer now. Just know the offer stands. Forever if that's what you need." She kissed him. Answer and promise in equal measure. They rejoined the others, found them gathered around Claire, who'd gone pale. "What's wrong?" "Contractions," Claire gasped. "They're coming fast." The baby, conceived in deception but carried with fierce love, was coming. And in that moment, surrounded by women who'd survived together, Bridget realized something profound. Andreas had tried to destroy them. Instead, he'd created a family. 1 year ago, Bridget Castellano's life was perfect lie. Today, her imperfect truth was everything. The office was smaller than the Lake Travis estate. Downtown Austin, 10th floor, view of the city instead of the lake. But it was hers, truly hers. No ghosts. No lies, just truth and hard work and women who'd survived together. Castellano Security, the company Andreas had built on stolen code and fraud, now renamed and restructured. Bridget ran it with Natasha as CFO. Vanessa headed the legal department. Jessica managed remote operations from Montana. Claire, when she wasn't caring for baby Hope, consulted on HR policies. The company thrived, not because Bridget was ruthless like Andreas, because she was honest. She'd fired the executives who'd known about the fraud, paid back investors who'd been deceived, built new partnerships based on transparency. Revenue was down initially. Then it doubled. Turned out clients valued honesty more than Andreas had believed. Bridget's new apartment was small, 1 bedroom, balcony overlooking downtown, no lake views, no luxury. But every piece of furniture was chosen by her. Every photo on the walls was real. Every memory made here was true. Michael had his own apartment across town. They spent most nights together but kept separate spaces. Insurance against codependency, against building another relationship on need instead of choice. "Ready?" he asked, adjusting his tie in her bathroom mirror. "For what?" "Tonight. The women. Hope's first birthday." Right. Claire was hosting at her new house. Modest place in the suburbs, bought with settlement money from Andreas's company. All the women would be there. Tyler, too. Kids playing while adults celebrated survival. So what would you do if you discovered your perfect life was perfect lie? Would you burn it down to build something real? Tell me in the comments what you learned from Bridget's story. What truth are you ready to face? The party was chaos in the best way. Hope, 1-year-old today, smashed cake into her face. Tyler chased bubbles in the backyard. Adults laughed and told stories and built new memories on foundation of old pain. Vanessa smiled. Real smile, not bitter one. She'd started dating again. Therapist who understood trauma. Took things slow. She was healing. Natasha had found peace, threw herself into work, made CFO of the Year by Major Business Magazine, used her story to advocate for financial transparency. Jessica stopped looking over her shoulder. Montana would always be home, but she visited Austin quarterly. Tyler called the other women Aunt. Knew his father was gone but never asked why. Someday they'd tell him, not yet. Claire thrived as single mother. Hope was healthy, happy, growing. Andreas was legally forbidden from contact. His parental rights terminated due to fraud conviction. And Bridget had learned to trust again. Michael slipped his hand into hers, warm, steady. A year of dating, a year of choosing each other daily. No performance, no lies, just 2 people building something real. "I have something for you," he said. "It's not my birthday." "I know, But I've been carrying this around for months, waiting for the right moment. Then I realized there's no perfect moment, just moments we choose to make important. He pulled out a ring. Simple, beautiful. Nothing like the massive diamond Andreas had given her, the one she'd sold to fund legal fees. Bridget Castellano, will you marry me? For real this time. No lies, no performance, just us, equals, partners. Building something honest. Making love to Michael was nothing like surviving Andreas. This was choice meeting choice, desire meeting respect, bodies speaking truth their voices had learned to demand. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. The women erupted. Champagne, tears, hugs, hope wailing because adults were too loud, Tyler asking why everyone was crying if they were happy. That night in Michael's bed, they celebrated. Their bodies familiar now, comfortable, but still electric, still new enough to surprise. I love you, she said, and meant it. Not the desperate love of dependency, the fierce love of equals who chose each other despite trauma. Because of it. I love you too. Every broken piece, every scared moment, every strong decision. Morning brought reality, work, meetings, responsibilities, but also coffee in bed. Shower together, small intimacies that meant everything because they were chosen, not owed. At the office, Bridget stood at her window. City spreading below, company running smoothly. Michael's ring on her finger. Claire's baby asleep in the nursery down the hall, daycare Bridget had installed so working mothers could keep their children close. Her phone buzzed. Andreas, from prison. He called sometimes. She never answered. But today, she picked up. What do you want? To tell you I was right. You're nothing without me. Company's dying. Media calls you the woman who married a monster and didn't know. You'll never escape what I made you. You're right about one thing. I'll never escape what you made me. She paused. You made me strong. You made me a survivor. You made me the kind of woman who turns ashes into empire, betrayal into bonds, survival into legacy. So thank you, Andreas, for teaching me exactly who I didn't want to be and showing me who I could become. She hung up, blocked the number, deleted it from her phone. Mrs. Hargrave was dead. Bridget Castellano had never been more alive. The women gathered monthly, chosen family bound by survival. They'd started a foundation, supporting other victims of fraud, reproductive coercion, domestic abuse. Claire's daughter called them all auntie. Vanessa finally smiled without shadow. Natasha found peace in work that mattered. Jessica stopped jumping at sounds. And Bridget learned that healing isn't linear. Some days were hard. Some nights she dreamed of Andreas and woke up gasping. But Michael held her. The women supported her. Therapy helped her process. She was building something real, something honest. Something that couldn't be destroyed because it was built on truth instead of lies. Andreas had tried to make her nobody. Instead, he'd taught her exactly who she was. A woman who refuses to be broken by the men who tried to destroy her. If this story made you feel something, rage, hope, recognition, smash that like button. Subscribe for more stories about women who refuse to be broken by the men who tried to destroy them. Comment below which moment hit you hardest. And remember, the most dangerous thing about a liar isn't what they take from you. It's what they teach you about your own strength. You're more powerful than you know.